Just like nearly every great show, it feels pretty safe to declare that a good chunk of Avatar: The Last Airbender's brilliance comes from its characters. There's a reason that any praise of a redemption arc as one of the best comes with a Zuko caveat. The character writing in the series is just something that feels so integral to the way the show feels to watch, and ultimately the way it's been remembered. As this relates to discussion of the show, this nearly universal excellence means there are a plethora of essays and videos discussing the intricacies of characters like Katara or Azula or the aforementioned Zuko, but that just isn't the case for every denizen of the show's world. Some characters are, as it appears to be, built to largely amplify those around them, almost as if they've been instructed to be as quiet and innocuous as possible, bursts of emotion seen only as potential distractions from what those in charge deem to be more important. Some characters, it seems, were simply left to develop in the background. Looking back at how they choose to tell the story of Mai, I really appreciate how they introduce the character to the audience outside the scope of simply being Zuko's girlfriend. Sure, our first chronological look at the character in episode 2-7 Zuko Alone does frame her mostly around blushing at Zuko and doing whatever Azula says, and yes, there are a few mentions of Mai being excited to meet back up with the prince, but the character actually spends the entirety of her first book away from him. Given the direction the show will take with Mai towards the end of the series, this decision is almost a necessity, giving us a chance to meet the governor's daughter outside of what ultimately defines much of her importance to the show's biggest plot lines. Speaking of which, we first run into this video's title character in the show's 23rd episode, 2-3 Return to Omashu, where she's introduced in a couple of different ways. First, as a bored royal, describing her hatred for her newly gifted cushy place in society as unfathomable, and referring to life as the daughter of the governor of Omashu as one in which, quote, nothing ever happens. This version of Mai, one that exists mostly as an extension of her family, is a concept that much of the rest of the show will bump against. The contrast between a girl who seemingly says and does whatever she wants, and one that still feels trapped by the conditions in which she's been raised. The other way that Mai is introduced in this episode is as an entire and complete kick-ass non-bender. She's one of the Fire Nation princess's first picks for her team, she remains the aggressor in a fight against all three current human members of Team Avatar, and ultimately spends her entire first episode destroying everybody she encounters outside of the enormous beast she somehow didn't see coming. Even outside of the combat though, choreography that fittingly features a character using exclusively ranged weapons, metaphorically and literally keeping herself at a distance, Mai also seems significantly more willing to embark on this adventure of violence than her counterpart, Hylics, needing quite a bit less of Azula's quote-unquote convincing. The rest of the character's season 2 appearances feature a continuation of many of her first appearances themes, with episodes like 2-8 The Chase and 2-16 Appa's Lost Days featuring the character continuing to kick ass at every opportunity, and episodes like 2-13 The Drill, where she refuses to get in the sludge, and 2-20 The Crossroads of Destiny, where she declines to fight over a bear, showing her lack of enthusiasm for the Fire Nation's current goals. There are a few other tidbits here I'd be remiss not to mention, from her clearly having actual affection for Ty Lee and something closer to fear towards Azula, to this moment clearly showing that Mai's path was set in stone from the jump.
It's terrible when you can't trust the people who are closest to you.
But in general, Mai just doesn't have a huge impact on the plot of Book 2. Mostly just pulling Katara and Sokka into fights that Aang himself is too important to be a part of. Nevertheless, while the best of the character is nearly objectively yet to come, I don't think any of it works without first establishing what we learn about her here. All the things that she's willing to do, in contrast to what she's about to refuse. While Mai may not be too heavily involved with the events that temporarily bring the Fire Nation's prince back onto their side, she certainly changes as a result. The Mai that we see be all lovey-dovey with Zuko in episodes 3-1 The Awakening and 3-2 The Headband hardly resembles the season 2 version of the character at times, But I think this only helps to contextualize the May that we have come to know. Discovering just how deeply she cared about Zuko, somebody the Fire Nation harshly cast out for his aversions to their cruelty, does a pretty good job towards explaining why she isn't exactly enthusiastic about helping that same nation achieve more of that same cruelty. There are a few moments here too that help to further foreshadow what is to come, with May giving this nasty stare to Azula when she's separated from Zuko, and just a general sense throughout both of these episodes that she has switched her main allegiance from one royal sibling to the other. But while May's general hatred for the world may have somewhat quieted down for the first fifth or so of the season, that doesn't quite make it through episode 3-5, The Beach. After a series of Fire Nation teen shenanigans that make this sneakily one of my favorite episodes of the show, May and Zuko have the world's most predictable falling out, with Zuko setting things off with this line.
You have no passion for anything! You're just a big blah!
In this moment, and the emotional campfire monologue that follows, May makes clear the reason she acts the way she does. The reason she feels unhappy with a life of comfort, finding herself unable to care about it or hardly anything at all. After being treated her entire life as a sign of family prosperity, raised by those who care more about what she represents than who she is, May has learned that what she says or what she feels just really doesn't matter. And while this scene isn't exactly the most subtle of what Avatar has to offer, I do think there are some subtleties within it, such as how the siblings react to May's words. For Zuko, this works as a way back towards a relationship with May, something to connect to her with as they rebuild what they used to have in earnest. For Azula, however, this is nothing short of embarrassing, a rare and uncomfortable outburst from the one who's usually most dependably quiet. It was for people such as the princess that May was raised as she was, after all. What's to come of their relationship has never been clear. Before that comes to fruition though, we do get one more May and Zuko episode. And while much of the pair's part of episode 3-9, Nightmares and Daydreams, is largely just to make sure that the audience knows the two of them are on good terms before the mid-season finale, it's still incredibly charming to watch these two interact. Seeing May actually remain consistently supportive throughout Zuko's angsty daddy issues is really sweet. And there's just a ton of moments here that completely sell you on the idea that these two might actually be good for each other. It makes what's coming, however, feel considerably worse. It initially seems like the show missed a great moment by not including any scene during the Day of Black Sun between Zuko and May. It eventually becomes quite clear that all they did was create an even better one. Because, of course, the only way May's story of being treated as the pawn in furthering of another's goal, left to be ignorant and uninvolved in the greater plan for her country, could possibly resolve was for the one she cared for most doing it to her as well.
This isn't about you. This is about the Fire Nation.
This sentiment from Zuko in 3-15 The Boiling Rock Part 2 is one that extends throughout this entire episode's worth of interactions between the pair. Sure, the prince may still care for May, but he just doesn't think she deserves to be a bigger part of the story. It's something she's heard her entire life. And as Zuko traps her away from the action, trusting her as little as everybody else has, we get one final truly interesting moment between the pair, as they simply exchange glances. May's expression is one of true seething anger, devastation at the way she's been treated, not only by Zuko, but by everyone. Wrath at the idea that even the person who ostensibly knows her best, the one she'd rather spend all of her time right next to, would still rather have her over on the sidelines. For Zuko, we see eyes begging to be understood, hoping that May, somebody he obviously actually cares about, will eventually understand why he's doing what he's doing, or at least forgive him for it. There's just something so fascinating about this back and forth to me. These two characters desperately trying to get the other one to understand why they feel the way they do. Ultimately, May is freed from the literal darkness in time to make a decision that, for the first time in the series, will actually impact the events of the show. For the past 55 episodes, May has managed to stay on both royal siblings' good sides. But now that fratricide is not only on the table, but seemingly the primary goal for Azula, that's not exactly a non-choice that she can continue to make. For May, it's time for a decision, the type of one she spent this entire series almost begging for an opportunity to make. And despite it being her first time making a choice of this magnitude, she still comes to a conclusion rather quickly.
You miscalculated. I love Zuko more than I fear you.
There are a few ways to interpret this line. First, as entirely literal, the idea that despite everything he's put her through, that she still cares more for Zuko than she does for her own well-being. However, I think the more interesting way to look at this is through a slightly broader lens. The idea that, in this moment, it's not really May choosing brother over sister, it's her choosing the things she cares about over the things she's only supposed to. A taking back of her own choices, of her own say in the world she inhabits. That's the interpretation, at least, that personally makes this moment feel so special, so loud, so impactful. All things that May was raised to never be. Anyway, that's about it for me. If you want approximately 3 to 4 more takes on animation of frankly diminishing quality, you can find me on Blue Sky and only scroll a little bit down. But either way, this has been AmpleSamuel, and I'll see you in a couple of weeks for a video I'll be a little smarter and not tease this time. Thanks for watching.